Hello guys, welcome to this Volkswizard video. Now today's video is one I've been looking forward to making for many months. In fact, it's been over 4 months since I was last together with these two cars up a windswept mountain in South Wales for the Up GTI UK media event. And when I was there, I did make a video on the Up GTI and I did actually write an article for Motoring Research and MSN on the two cars, but there just wasn't enough time to make a video. And in the intervening few months, Volkswagen UK wouldn't lend me an Up GTI to do it, so I've had to wait until mine arrived, which was about 6 weeks ago, and it's literally just been run in. It's just done over 1,000 miles. So in this video, I can drive it in the manner to which you would expect me to drive it, which means using the top end of the rev counter, just like you would do with the Lupo GTI. So without any further ado, let's start off this video by having a good look around these two pocket rockets. Okay guys, let's start at the front of the Lupo GTI. So what's immediately obvious is that the front bumper is a lot more aggressive with its honeycomb inserts. There's even a GTI grille badge, which the Golf GTI of the day didn't even get. There's a aluminium bonnet that looks just like standard, but it's made of aluminium, not standard steel. You've got aluminium wings, aluminium doors. The front wings are more flared than standard, as are the rear wheel arches, which are made of steel. And the sills are as well, and that gives the car a mini RS4 look. Now, as well as looking cool, it means that the front wheels are set further out, which gives the car a wider track, and that gives it better stability in corners. We've also got standard xenon headlamps. Now, back in the day, these were a very rare and expensive option on cars, but here they are as standard on a £13,000 Lupo. Crazy. Volkswagen was obviously not run completely by accountants back in those days. We've got 15-inch alloy wheels called Bathurst, and they come with 205, 45, 15 tyres. Originally these were made by Dunlop, but Toyo are one of the few companies that still make them, so most cars will be on Toyos these days. The discs are normally 256mm, and these have been upgraded to 280 on this car. It's like a G60 conversion. The mirrors are a bit smaller. I think the passenger side one, yeah, so that's just a little quirk of the car. And we've got, yeah, standard rear discs. So Volkswagen Up GTI owners, look away now. We've got standard rear discs on this car. Whether you really need them or not is another story, but it's nice to have a red caliper on the back and a red caliper on the front. The back is actually quite plain really. You've got the twin tailpipe exhaust, which is one up on that of the 16 valve model, which just had an oval one, and the other models had no visible exhaust. The back bumper is pretty standard. It just flares out a bit more to join the flared wheel arches. Tailgate's the same. You've got a GTI badge again, which is like the ones on the Mark IV Golfs. Rear wiper, a bit more of a spoiler. Yeah, you've got quite a nice spoiler there. Beasting aerial, which I think they all had. Nothing special. So let's have a look inside. So it was a pretty much, I think it was 6N Polo, this car, or 6N2 Polo, the facelift car from about 98 to 2002. The dashboard and I suppose pretty much everything really is taken out from that car, which isn't a bad thing. You know, it's quite a nice dash. It's got this nice textured plastic on it, silver instrument cluster bezels. You've got the same stereo as that in a Mark IV Golf, a Gamma. I think occasionally they came with a CD player. Air conditioning was a very kind of rare option, as was leather and heated seats, so most cars are like this. This is a later car with, I think it's 2002 this car, so it was, I think, just got the 6-speed gearbox, which is why I was kind of pleased to have it originally, because I really didn't want the 5-speed. I'd love one with air conditioning and leather, but 6-speed gearbox to me was a bit more important because the ratios are nice and short and make the most of that Revy 16-valve engine, as we'll find out later. So the seats are much more bolstered than those you get in an Up GTI. They're, I think, a pretty similar shape to those in a Mark IV Golf GTI. You could get them in a red fabric. This is called interwoven velour. This is one of the two options. The other one's got a bit more red, which looks great on a GTI. You do get red stitching though there, get red stitching on the gear gaiter, but it's not an awful lot to lift the cabin, to be honest. You've got MG Metro style seat belts, which I guess bring a bit of colour as well, so that's quite nice. Oh, and you get alloy pedals, which you don't get on the Up GTI, which is a bit of a shame, to be honest, but there you go. Right, let's have a look under the bonnets. So it might be aluminium, but it still opens like the normal one. Okay, here we have a 1600 16-valve engine producing 125 horsepower. It's a very revvy engine, likes to rev, and it's not turbocharged, it's normally aspirated, and it actually does use quite a lot of fuel, especially if you drive it in the manner to which you'd expect it to, because all the power's at the top end, so you have to really rev it to get anywhere. But it's fun, and I guess a lot of people will say that a GTI should have a really revvy engine, and It's fun to wind it up, it's just a bit tiring. Normally at 80 miles an hour, if you're in Germany of course, you'd be doing about 4,000 RPM, so it's quite busy. It's not very noisy, because I did drive it when I went to the shoot in South Wales on the M50, and actually it was quite refined, but it wasn't doing particularly good MPG, probably under 30 at that kind of speed. So yeah, it might be fun, but compared to something like the Up GTI, which will do like 50 plus all day long on a steady run, it's a very thirsty car. But yeah, for a weekend car, it's a hell of a lot of fun. Little quirk is that the battery's in the boot, which is terrible when you have a flat battery, as I often have in this car, because I can't get into the boot because there's no electrics. But you pop the bonnet, put the booster onto there, and it energises the car, and you can open the boot. Okay, let's move on to the Up GTI. Now the first thing to point out is that there isn't an awful lot of difference between this car and the TSI 90. Some people in the press have said that the bumpers are exclusive to the GTI. Well, actually they're wrong, because the back bumper is identical, and the only difference between the front bumper of the TSI 90 and the GTI is that this bit is black on the GTI. On the TSI 90, that is body coloured. Now you might think that the GTI should have its own identity and have different bits and pieces, but Volkswagen have been very clever in that it has got its own identity. It's got a little grille badge, it's got a grille stripe you can barely see on a red car. Little bits they've added cheaply, give it enough to stand out. You've got the stripes on the side again. How much is a bit of vinyl? Not an awful lot, but it's a nod to the Mark 1 Golf GTI. In fact, these are remarkably close to the stripes as standard on a Mark 1 Golf GTI. And the wheels actually, which look like BBS, they're actually probably the nicest wheel on any GTI in the range at the moment. They're made by Ronal. They are fantastic. Some people say they're a bit big as 17s and they ruin the ride quality, but look at it. I don't think 16s would probably do this car justice. You could have 17s on other cars as well. They're an extra cost option, but these are the standard wheels for the GTI. And speaking of standard, this is Tornado Red, which after a lot of contemplation with the colour I went for because it was free, and you know, on a small car, I think it's very hard to beat really. I did pay extra for the roof, which was 250 quid. You can't get the standard red with a black roof on the Polo GTI, which is a bit odd, so you have to pay extra for a colour. It's like 800 quid to change the colour in the roof on the Polo GTI, so yeah, another reason not to buy a Polo GTI and to buy this, I'd say, but hey, it's all down to your needs. Okay, we've got the red stripe on the back. Again, it's a standard tailgate, little bits and pieces have been added to make the difference. We've got a nice little shiny tailpipe there as well. Now this car's got the parking sensors, which are money well spent. They come with the cruise pack. Let's have a look inside. So you probably heard me say all this a million times. Got the Yakara red tartan that's not very well bolstered, and yeah, I think I do get a bit of pain in the small of my back every so often, but for the shorter journeys they're actually quite good. You've got the lovely GTI steering wheel that's missing a few buttons, but is otherwise identical to that in a 7 and 7.5 GTI. You've got the 2D pixel dash, which, as somebody pointed out rightly, the red is different to the red, so it doesn't look as good as it could do, but in my opinion it works okay, and I quite like having the red here on the inside of the car. You know, I've lived this car now for over a month, I've used it every day, and I'm quite happy with my decision. I'm very happy to have climate control, which cost a couple of hundred quid extra, maybe about 300, was it 350? Because we have this bit of a heat wave now, so it's been great to have climate. The only thing that really bugs me is that you've got a centre grille there, which is the only sort of central form of ventilation, and when you have your phone in the place, it's blocking the flow of the grille. So ventilation is a bit rubbish in this car, to be perfectly honest, but in every way I am perfectly happy with it. It's got a 6-speed gearbox, no red stitching there, no alloy pedals. Look at those crappy pedals, almost as crappy as my Mark 4 Golf floor mat. Okay guys, under the Up GTI's bonnet we have the Engine of the Year 2018. Yep, this engine won an award for being the best engine, so it has to be very good. I'm not completely surprised, to be honest, because it's very economical, it's very tractable with 200 newton meters of torque. Okay, it's only got 112 horsepower, which isn't that impressive, but it still loves to rev, and it's a very torquey engine, which in this light car makes this car very enjoyable to drive. The big question is though, is it more enjoyable to drive than the Lupo GTI? Well, there's only one way to find out. So without any further ado, let's hit the road in the Lupo GTI. Okay guys, here we are behind the wheel of the Lupo GTI, and it's a really pleasant place to be when you're on a typical British B road like this one, when you're not actually trying too hard. So we're just pottering along. We might take a corner on this road at the speed limit of 60 miles an hour and it might feel perfectly good. There is always the underlying suspicion though that if you were to take a corner a little bit too fast, that there wouldn't be an awful lot of capacity in the chassis to get you round it. And as we go a little bit, not maybe faster, but around some sharper corners on this road, it's quite easy to feel that the chassis isn't particularly well suited to the role of a GTI, because it does have an awful lot of roll and pitch, and much like the Mark IV Golf GTI of the day, it isn't a particularly good advert for the chassis dynamic engineers of Volkswagen at the time, because this was a few years before Carsten Schebstadt came to the group from Ford, and things got a lot better. So yeah, there's an awful lot of pitch and roll. It's significantly underdamped, and this car was actually running brand new Volkswagen dampers, so it's pretty much as good as it can get. So let's just try this corner. We're doing the speed limit still, so I think there's quite a lot of yaw, which is disconcerting on this corner into third, well below the speed limit. There's a lot of squealing and rolling, and then once it starts to go at the front, you can feel that the back is slightly unstable. It is a bit of a mess, to be honest. It's far too much geared towards comfort and not enough towards agility, much like the Mark IV Golf GTIs of the day, which I've already mentioned. Anyway, one good thing is that engine. So it's a 16 valve in the traditional sense. It likes to rev, and we're in third now. It's 5,000 revs, and at 5,000 it does get a real wriggle on, and its note hardens, and it sounds like an angry swarm of bees. Of course, the problem with all the power being at the top end is you tend to approach corners a little bit too fast, and not knowing whether the chassis can actually get you around it, so you do need to be a bit careful. It's understandable why so many of these cars have got coilovers on them, because it's just so ragged. I think it looks great at the standard ride height actually, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and you don't necessarily need to lower it. Just some nice firm Bilstein sort of B9 dampers would make a big difference, I think. I'm not saying it's not fun. The gearbox is interesting, yeah. It can be a bit reluctant when driven hard, but it's okay. And this is a 6-speed gearbox on this later 2002 car. The first couple of years of production it was a 5-speed. The 6 is definitely the one to go for, because it's lovely short ratios where you can really make the most of that top end. The brakes are pretty good. This car's on 280s, but 256s for the road are good. So the Lupo GTI is clearly a hell of a lot of fun. It's got a fantastic engine that loves to be revved, and the chassis, well, it could be better, and you know, for not a very big investment, you could make it a lot better and make it a match for that engine. But is it more fun than the Up GTI? Well, there's only one way to find out. Let's go and drive the Up GTI. Okay guys, here we are behind the wheel of my own Up GTI. So we're on the same road as we were in the Lupo, and even at this slow speed, which is about 45 miles an hour, it feels so much more composed, almost encouraging you to like push it a bit further. So if we go up to the 60 mile an hour speed limit, it's not perfect. It doesn't go around corners like it's on rails like a Golf, which can be almost too easy, but it's not wallowy and almost scarily out of control like the Lupo. So yeah, it does feel like you can place it better. This is a narrow road. Even in this car, it's only in some places just about as wide as the carriageway, but you feel like you can place it perfectly in that carriageway and make the most of the road and the performance available. And it does have plenty of performance. So okay, I reckon ultimately they don't feel that much different when it comes to acceleration, but to get the Lupo to move, you really have to rev it, and the opportunities to do that are not that frequent. Plus it uses a lot of fuel while it does it. So this car, okay, it's not the best compliment, but it does drive a lot like a good turbo diesel in that it's got loads of mid-range torque, and it goes round corners. So we squealed around that corner in the Lupo at probably about 2/3 of the speed. In this car it was not even close to its limits. So again, so like a diesel it goes, but it's quite happy to rev. There's a bit of traction control out there, but it didn't seem to cut the fun. So what's that, 4,500 revs? Well, to be honest, the gearing's so long in this car, we're really not going to get as close to the rev limiter in third without breaking the speed limit. So let's try this in second. 3,000 revs in second. A bit of lag, but it's off. 6. Sort of rev limiter's about 6.5. It's a very soft limiter. And then you're up to the speed limit. But the difference is, in this car, we can take the corner. So it still feels a bit scary, but probably because I did it last in the Lupo GTI, and that was scary. So no, that was lovely. It felt like we weren't that close to the limits. And this is quite a challenging road. It's quite rutted. It's got some slightly funny corners in it, tricky cambers. So that third gear, which will take you well over the speed limit for the UK. But yeah, it just feels so much more precise and so much more biddable. And don't get me wrong, the Lupo GTI is a wonderful car, but it's almost like it was developed by two different people. Some people went crazy on the wide arches and stuff, but they actually didn't do anything with the chassis to make the most of the wider track. While the Up GTI feels like a whole car, that every little bit of it has been honed to perfection. Some bits are better than the Lupo GTI, some bits are admittedly worse, like the body is, you know, standard. But to me, it doesn't matter if the car's got wide arches and looks cool if it doesn't drive very well, and it doesn't matter if the car's got narrow arches and looks pretty much like a normal if it drives really well, and that's what this car does. So yes, the Lupo GTI is a current classic, not even a future classic, I'd say, and it's a beautiful thing to behold, but it just needs a little bit of tweaking to make the most of it. Well, the Up GTI at the box couldn't really be improved. It's just every little area of it is as good as it possibly could be for the price. And we've got to talk about the price because this car was $13,750 new. It's now $14,000. But that price is pretty similar to what the Lupo GTI was when it was new. And that was, like 13 years ago when you could buy the last Lupo GTI. If you allow for inflation on that 14 grand, it would actually make the Lupo GTI £20,000 today. And with the Up GTI, you just get so much more for your money. You could have a perfectly good case for owning both, but for a daily driver that's a bit of fun, you just can't beat the Up GTI. So I hope you've enjoyed this Volkswizard video. If you have, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more and see you for the next one soon. I'm off to have some fun.